The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
You're listening to
Wrestling to the Max.
Alert. Clear all channels.
This is an exclusive.
How you like that?
And your host, Gary Vaughan, Sean Garmer, and Paul Leazar.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much love drives a man insane. You broke my will, but what a thrill. Getting this wreck is just quitting balls of fire. I let the love all I thought it was funny. You came along.
Welcome, everybody, to Wrestling to the Max's Great Balls of Fire 2017 review. And, of course, we are brought to you by W2Mnet.com. That's right, the place where you go find all your great wrestling content. Plus, we're also brought to you by 411mania.com. And if you want to go find us on any other thing we do, make sure you go subscribe at Wrestling to the Max or the W2M Network. I am your host, Gary Vaughan. Along with me is Mr. Sean Garmer.
What's up, everybody?
And Mr. Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And Paul was live in attendance tonight in Dallas, Texas at the American Airlines Center. And, boy, I mean, I'm really excited about finding out, your point of view, Paul. I mean, from the network, you kind of get an idea, but you were there live in the crowd. How did you feel that crowd did tonight?
Definitely there were parts of the show that they cared about. Obviously, the things that they built up really well, like the last two matches, especially, they were super hot for. But they were a little down during the women's match, unfortunately, until the end. And I didn't feel like the opener really got them off to a hot and heavy thing either. But the opener was a little dull too, so that's not really against them. But everything else, I felt like they were appropriate for.
Yeah, to be fair, that whole storyline has been dull.
Yeah, it's garbage, for sure, yeah.
Which I don't blame the crowd at all. I mean, it's just so funny because, when you're there live, and I was at TLC this past year in Dallas, and to kind of see the crowd's reaction and watch it back on the network, it's kind of funny to see how they turn up the volume, turn down the volume sometimes on certain things. So it's just interesting. And so we'll be picking your brain throughout this whole show and talking about maybe reactions during each match. Well, let's get this thing kicked off. We're going to go ahead and start with a pre-show. Let's go ahead and talk about Neville and Kira Tozawa. That's right. They faced off for the Cruiserweight title in the kickoff match in this show. And this was one that I think gave us a few little things here that we can be happy with, but I don't know. I wasn't sure if I was really just thinking this lived up to what I wanted it to. I thought this was going to be a little bit more hotter, but you do have Neville winning, of course, by dastardly deeds, but he does do the job and retain his Cruiserweight title. So, Paul, how did you feel about this one?
I really enjoyed this match, personally. I thought both guys worked very well with each other, and everything up until that finish was great. I was especially surprised by, one, not only how loud the crowd was during this, but two, really just how many people were in the seats, because, it's the Cruiserweights and the pre-show. I didn't think, I figured people would still be in line at the merchandise area, but not so. And it made this match very enjoyable the whole way around. I didn't like the finish at all. I thought it was kind of lame. It came off pretty poorly live, but, Neville retains, which I don't know if that really surprised anybody, but for sure, a good match that's worth your time.
I unfortunately did not get to watch the pre-show, so.
Yeah, you go back and watch if you want. I think it was okay, right? I think there were moments, like I said before, that were pretty good, and I love both these guys, and you know what you're going to get out of them, but they did not give you an overwhelmingly great match, something that you're going to be like, oh my God, you have to see this, which I was kind of hoping they were going to steal the show a little bit. I was kind of hoping they were going to get a lot of fire under them and, really get this thing going. That way people want to watch the cruiserweights. That way people will do kind of like Paul said and be in their seats when the cruiserweights are out there. So, I don't think they did a bad job. I'm kind of making it sound like I didn't like it. I enjoyed it. I think I was just getting my hopes way too high. And so that's okay, because I know now that the reason they did this is because they're going to give us more of it. And that means that there'll be better things to come. So that's where I need to come in to put my brain into place. So, but yeah, that's your kickoff match, and a decent one, like I said. So there you go. Neville is still your cruiserweight champion. Well, let's move and start talking about the main part of this card, and we will start off with that kickoff match for the actual start of the show, and that, of course, was Bray Wyatt versus none other than Seth Rollins, Mr. WWE 2K18, I guess it was. I almost said 2017 or something. But anyway, the guy himself got in the ring, and this was one, really, once again, just kind of like the feud is kind of methodical, kind of paced, but just, I really didn't find it overwhelmingly great, Sean. I don't know about you. It had its moments where you could say, okay, that's fine, but nothing that just blew me away. And Bray Wyatt winning was a little bit of a surprise because he loses everything. But other than that, I was not over. I don't know. I just didn't care.
Yeah. This match was kind of like this feud, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's dull. It had some moments. It's just, if you don't care about what you're watching, it's hard to care about the match that's happening, even if you're looking at it from a, work rate perspective or whatever. It's just, Wyatt winning was like, okay, he poked him in the eye and he hit Sister Abigail great, but I get it. He's trying to prove that he's going to do whatever he has to get his point across, but I don't know.
It's so weird to me, too, for the fact that you have your opener usually being the one you want to kind of really get people stoked and excited about the whole show, and something that was really, maybe have people hanging on there where they can see. I honestly thought the tag titles were going to be the opener of the show. I really felt like that was going to happen to get people going, to get them excited. It just wasn't the case, and I don't know. I appreciate that, the thumb poke to the eye only because it's an old school kind of dirty thing to do, but outside of that, Paul, I was just not overwhelmed with greatness.
Live, this was a pretty standard fair match, right? There's nothing technically wrong with anything these guys did in there. Like, there's nothing serious as far as what's going on in between the ropes to really take you out of this, but, being there live, Wyatt's entrance always gets people pretty hyped for things. And you've both seen it live, so, you know that, like, all the lights everywhere, it's all really cool. And I felt like, the opening minutes of the match, the crowd was still kind of into it, and then it sort of lagged up until you have the double dive spot by Rollins up until the finish. So, the crowd kind of cared, just because I think you have so much production that sort of makes you do. But, I was talking to my friends and more paying attention to the kid to my right than I was watching the match, so...
It kind of speaks volumes of what's going on here, right? Well, like you said, I think you got to respect both Bray and Seth. They do a good job, like you're saying here, Paul. Nothing wrong with those guys. It's just that really, honestly, the creative and everything that surrounds this feud is so lackluster that your attention is not on them. It's not there. I'm sorry. And the match itself couldn't save it, and I don't think even if they were trying to, they didn't do that either. So, we'll see. I hope this is a quick end to this thing. I just want to get it done. I know it won't be, but I want it to be done sooner than later. But you're right. The entrance for Bray Wyatt is always a blast. It's something about it that gets you going. And if that was their thing, that's fine, but they got you for about 2 minutes, and then they kind of lost you after those 2 minutes of the intro. So... but anyway, let's talk about something else that could be entertaining to you guys, and that is, of course, Enzo Amore versus Kaz. That's right, Big Kaz has arrived with new music, in fact, which I personally did not care for too much. I thought that music was kind of, just did not like it. But anyway, you have Enzo actually.
It was your generic, like, Superstar Original 2 on the WWE 2K18.
What's funny too is as Big Cass was coming out in this match, I sat there and thought to myself, "Is the car not starting?" Because it did it, and it started up, and then it kind of go die. It's like, oh my god, this is kind of annoying. I get it; they're trying to make Bigfoot sound right. The whole boom, boom, boom. I get that, but do that once. Don't do it throughout this entire freaking song. But anyway, you got Enzo Amore coming out first, and the crowd, it seems pretty darn hot for him. It was really fun, and he cuts this promo. It's kind of a lengthy promo, honestly. He's out there talking about the same stuff he's been talking about. Hey, I used to have this awesome thing with Kaz, and it goes throughout, how he's going to overcome. He's a real G, all that great stuff. It just seems to take a little long time. I think the crowd at times kind of liked it. At times, I think the crowd just goes kind of like, move it along. But, in the end, he does his thing, and then you have, of course, Big Cass come down to that ring, and they get this match going, and Enzo has just a brief chance, and the rest of it is Big Cass beating him down. Didn't take much, didn't take very long. Big Cass wins this match. No big surprise to us. I mean, I think all three of us figured this was going to happen. I mean, Paul, I'm really interested in seeing what you thought about, the crowd's thoughts and reaction to Enzo, but it was just not much going on here.
I thought the live crowd was pretty into Enzo's promo for the most part, and I thought it was good. I mean, it has the same problem he usually has in these promos where he gets too much time, so he has to restate some things, and it's not exactly as, I think, straight to the point as you want it to be. But, everybody was into what he said. I mean, it's kind of hard to boo a guy who's just talking about trying to live his dreams now. And I think for a lot of people who might have been there, like I was last year at the Raw after WrestleMania when they debuted, if you have those fond memories of them showing up and then for that to come full circle here in Dallas where now they're facing off in a match one-on-one, and it was kind of a neat little journey that he took you on as far as the promo went. So I appreciated all that. And you're right. The match was exactly what I thought it was. It was exactly what it needed to be, too, right? Cass is the one they're going to run with after this. And Enzo is either going to be left in the tag division or they're going to find something else for him to do that's just not as high up the card as Big Cass is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I just hope as Big Cass progresses, hopefully his music does, too. I mean, Mike, I don't know.
I didn't hate it. It's super uninspired. It's just here's a theme. Here you go, Cass.
Yeah, like Sean said, Superstar number 2. There's your soundtrack. I don't know. I just did not like it. But
we found some stock music in the back here.
Yeah. Hey, we found this next to the Hardy soundtrack. We're gonna give you this one. But anyway, no. I mean, I love the point you made though about what Enzo did bring up, and I didn't bring it up myself. Was that this is kind of a full circle thing in Dallas because they did debut on TV in Dallas, and for them to be facing each other in Dallas later on. It's just kind of a funny thing, but on the other hand, it's kind of an interesting situation because all three of us were there on that debut. All three of us, I think, were kind of happy for those guys. And it's just now it's a completely different story and two different journeys we're going to watch. And those journeys hopefully are good for both guys. I'm concerned a little bit about Enzo, but, we'll see. I don't want to wish anything bad early on him. So... All right, well, let's jump on over to the other match. That means we're going to talk about the 30-minute tag team match. And this, of course, takes place for the Hardys and, of course, Cesaro and Sheamus, who are the champions. They'll be defending those titles. And this one was one I think a lot of people were kind of up for. I think it was a pretty darn fun match to watch as it progressed, only for the fact that you did get some suspense throughout. And you get this sometimes, right, in these matches because, they're Iron Man matches. And these Iron Man matches, have these kind of falls where it's kind of a scoring system, and it actually kind of goes along with what we see in sports, right? If you're a hockey fan or you're a fan of soccer, you kind of get this, and you kind of love to follow the scoring system. And I think they did a good job in this one. The Hardys fell down fast. They were down 2-1, then they went down 3-1. They had to come back and tie the thing up, and then pretty close to the end here, the Hardys lose the pinfall, and they cannot catch up fast enough. Jeff Hardy cannot cover him quick enough to get the 3 count. He only gets 2, and it is, of course, now sitting here today, the Hardys are not your champions. It is Cesaro and Sheamus retaining their Raw tag titles. I think this was fun. I mean, there's a lot of stuff involved here. I think they tried to do their best. I did love the fact that you did have Cesaro and Sheamus coming out of this looking really strong, Sean. I don't know about you, but I think I feel even better about those guys coming out of this match. They just look so good together, and the Hardys did their thing.
Yeah, the first 15 minutes of this was just kind of, it was there. It was sort of starting to drag on, and you're like, oh man, they might have done not the greatest decision of putting the Hardys in a just regular Iron Man match without the no DQ stip or whatever, like I think I talked about. And then the last 15 minutes, specifically the last 10 or so, kicked in, and it got really, really good. It was just all action, the Hardys trying to come back from down 3-1, which is now the magical, oh my god, you beat that, we need to make this a big deal thing. And I love the finish with Cesaro getting the pin out of nowhere to get the 4th. And then Jeff almost gets it right on the dot where the hand would have been coming down right when it hit 0. But I think they did well enough for trying to time something like that. That was still pretty damn good. And like you said, Cesaro and Sheamus looked really good here. The beginning was also really just inventive to have it start out like that, really quick pinfall to put the Hardys behind. And yeah, this is going to be, where the heck do we go from here? Because there's no other face tag teams on Raw. So are they going to put 2 people together, or are they going to keep this going somehow again? Or are they just going to make it a big old schmoz at the SummerSlam like they like to do to get everybody on the card? Possibilities.
I would wager a big old schmoz of everything for SummerSlam. But this match I thought was really good. It had some peaks and valleys early on until you get to the end, and then it's just straight fire pretty much from there. But there's some pretty obvious botches. I don't know if this made the telecast or not, but Matt Hardy goes to punch Cesaro before they both spill to the outside near the end, and he misses him by a mile, and then hits a really, really crappy-looking clothesline, and then they both sort of just run to the ropes, and Cesaro can't make it over because he didn't have enough momentum, so they just sort of, haphazardly fall out. It was a giant mess. It was like they were trying to play how many times they can mess up in 10 seconds. But yeah, I mean, everything else in this I felt like ran pretty smoothly. I thought the Hardys looked great. Cesaro and Sheamus looked super strong, and they could force a rematch out of this, right? I mean, they snuck the fall, they got outsmarted, and then Jeff almost gets the last fall to tie it up, and the ref miscue too. I don't know if you guys caught all that, but the referee very clearly counts to 3, and Cesaro is late on getting to the fall to break it up, and so everybody in the arena thought it was 3, and they start booing the ref and heckling him and all this, and it really looks like it should have been an extra fall for the Hardys, and maybe they bring that up. That could be an interesting way to go too.
Yeah, you're right, and I do remember that, and I was thinking to myself, well, maybe there's something I missed. Maybe, he got there before I was just trying to think to myself, okay, maybe I should rewind this and check this out again, but I just kind of let it go. But, yeah, I mean, some of those things that happen are, kind of, but, like you said, maybe it kind of leans more towards, maybe this thing doesn't just end here. Maybe they get another shot at the titles, or they have at least an argument, right? Which is fine. You know, one of the moments that I missed, or not missed, but I thought that was kind of funny that I think they kind of screwed up on was when I believe it was Cesaro throwing, I think it was throwing Matt into the barricade, and then he went to go get an uppercut, and Matt basically already fell down before he got the uppercut, so we just kind of had to lean against the thing like he did it. I got him. I at least think that at least, please. So there's a few things like you said in that match, but I kind of gave him a little credit for the fact that it was a lengthy match, and but I think overall, I think people were entertained, and I think that's the big thing here, right? People were invested. I think leading up until you get to this match, right? You had a match that opened that you're just kind of, okay. And then the next one you get, and really honestly, squash. That's all you can really say about it, right? So, you kind of already have a slow start to this show. And I think at least this kind of entertained the crowd. I think it entertained the audience at home for the fact that, these two tag teams are great. They screwed up a little bit, but they did pretty good for the majority of the match. So I appreciate all that. I think that worked in the favor of everyone. So not much hate against it. And I think Cesaro and Sheamus are the right ones to win. And I think that we're going to get some more great stuff out of this. I'm like you, Paul and Sean. I know both of you guys talk about this. Who's that next team? Who's that face team? And it's just, I think all of us have our hands in the air. Show us
for sure.
It's going to be, So, and of course, we'll talk about that when we get to Raw. They'll probably announce that.
I have a question. Did you guys see what Matt caught his eye on to make him bleed so much at the end?
I did not. They panned over, and then you look over again. They pan back to him, and all of a sudden he's bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be one of those where you might have to go back and rewatch it in slow-mo or something to see. But yeah,
it was
busted.
For sure, yeah, he bled a whole bunch. It is really interesting, too, because while they're sitting there trying to clean him up, he's sitting there, and you can see some of the broken mannerisms creeping into his face and his eyes and his motions and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting.
He was doing it in the match, too.
Mm-hmm.
He got the delete chant going, whatever, and I like that he kind of throws it in there here and there. Who knows if they're ever going to get that or not, but hey,
it's still
he
fun.
Can do it, why not?
Yeah, for sure.
The crowd still gets behind it too. That's what's the best thing, right? That the lawyers can say what they want, but hey, the crowd are still invested in the delete, and they're still invested in all the other stuff that the Hardys do. So hey, that as long as the crowd can do it, they're not going to get sued. They can't get sued. So let them do that. Let him kind of play off it, and that's fine. I think all that's fine and dandy, and I'm excited that at least we get a chance to see something and not nothing at all. So
right.
But yeah, that's pretty much what we have.
I just always laugh when Michael Cole calls them Team Extreme. So they haven't been extreme in a while. It's just,
well, really since Mania, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too, the Team Extreme thing. You also, in a way, kind of throw Lita in there too, and not being there, also kind of think, this is not exactly Team Extreme like we remember them. I'm sorry.
Right.
So. Of course, with her being back on the other thing, but that would never happen. But anyway, let's jump into some
pretty sure we'd have a cat fight live on TV. Revy would just show up.
Oh, man. She's already tweeted out some things about that. She's already said some pretty crazy things, so, yeah. But, we'll tell you, we're talking about cat fights. Let's not talk. This one wasn't a cat fight, but it was a pretty, interesting match here. We got the women's championship match on this card, and Alexa Bliss walks in as your champion and is facing against Miss Sasha Banks. And this is one that, we were all kind of curious how it was going to shake out. There was different scenarios coming into this match, right? Because it was either going to be a straight-up match, something nefarious was going to happen. You were going to have one or two other people get involved in this match. You just really were kind of unsure how this thing was going to unfold. And you get a pretty decent match here. I think Sasha Banks gets an opportunity to look really strong here, gets the bank statement on, does a lot of things to kind of prove her point that she deserves to be in this picture. But, of course, Alexa Bliss does what a really great heel does, and that's get herself counted out. And that's how this thing ends up and rounds out completely. But, a pretty decent bout here. Nothing over the moon, but, I think you get something here that at least qualifies Sasha Banks to be in this picture. But I don't know, Sean. How did you feel about this one overall?
I thought this was actually a really good match. Not be Alexa Bliss's best match on the main roster, or just period, because I don't remember her really having, good matches on NXT either. It helps you're in there with Sasha Banks. I thought they played well off each other. Sasha getting to do everything she could to try to win here, getting to be aggressive, and then just the big brawl at the end I thought helped too. I really like these two together. I'm glad that they're going to continue this at least.
I really dug this match too. I thought they both worked really hard. They all, like Sean said, they played really well off each other, and I just think they had some really solid chemistry going into this, and they played well off of the crowd, and I think off of everything that they give them, and certainly once the match got going, the crowd got invested for sure. But I thought Sasha was going to win the title here, and maybe try to freshen up the division a little bit. But I like the finish personally, and especially the tease of Sasha getting that bank statement in and teasing that she, Alexa might tap again after what she did on Raw this past week. So all tied nicely together. And if they're given some more time at SummerSlam, then let them have it, because these two absolutely earned it. Although I really wouldn't be surprised if Nia gets added to this picture come that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly why I was a little bit surprised that there was nobody getting involved, especially Nia Jax, right? To come out there, at least be at ringside, maybe cause something to happen, even possibly save Alexa Bliss from losing. I thought could be one of those thought processes involved in this. But, I'm glad it wasn't that. I really am glad at least it was really just Alexa Bliss on her own, doing her thing, getting herself counted out. That way she could retain the title. And that's what good heels do. And so we'll get, this interesting journey from here and seeing who is added to the picture. I think you're right. Nia Jax is a big name to throw out there. And they may still even throw another one out there. They may even find a way to get Bayley back in the picture. I don't really think that's going to happen, but you just never know. Mm-hmm. So, I think what's exciting is that they do have many options right now, and there's no overwhelmingly bad thing out of that if they do use multiple options out of that. So, but yeah, wow. Like you said, a great match and something that at least people can be happy with, and not coming out of this saying that was one of the worst matches, because we've already had to deal with that before. So,
right.
Let's go ahead and I guess if everybody's kind of got their piece on that, we'll move on and talk about a match that I'm really curious to see. How the live interaction was with, and that was, of course, Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns taking each other on as they went out there, and they had a big ambulance match that was pretty crazy. I'll go ahead and talk about that one. I know I'm kind of skipping ahead. We have another match to talk about, but let's go ahead and talk about the ambulance match. And that ambulance match was one that, I think we got a few things that we wanted, right? Both guys, pretty much punched each other. We had, steel stairs involved. Both guys were working on the body parts. Of course, Braun Strowman injuring the ribs of Roman Reigns as much as he could. Of course, you had Roman working on that elbow with the steel chair and things like that. You had, Braun Strowman throw Roman Reigns off the stage into the ambulance, side of the ambulance at least. And then, of course, then you had Roman Reigns spear Braun Strowman through the LED board. So all these different big spots, a lot of big hits, and some interesting action here. The thing finishes out where we get lots of teases with the Superman punches from Roman Reigns to Braun Strowman that Braun could fall into the ambulance. It never really happens. Roman Reigns goes for the spear, though. Braun moves, and, of course, that leaves Roman Reigns inside the ambulance. Braun closes the doors. He wins the match, but he doesn't win the war. What happens here following is, as Braun Strowman celebrates, we have Roman Reigns getting out of the ambulance, attacking Braun, throwing him in the ambulance, closing the door, and driving it to the back. The ambulance is drove into the back, and then we see Roman Reigns back it up and wreck the ambulance into the back of it that looked like a tractor trailer. And then that pretty much left the ambulance in smoke. They had to call the fire department. They had to literally use the jaws of life to basically escort him out of that ambulance, which was kind of funny. And it took a lot of time. I'm just saying, guys, that was a lot of time. You had Kurt Angle out there. They were doing all these close-up shots.
Well, it took a lot of time because, Brock Lesnar can't wrestle long matches. So
Yeah, you're right about that. But I mean, still, this took it overwhelmingly. In fact, they during this time that we knew we were going to be sitting here, they showed that this was going on. They had an impromptu match, right? So I mean, Heath Slater.
This felt so thrown out there, like at the last minute, like, oh my god, this is really taking too long. You guys, get out there, do something. Like Heath Slater's putting tape on, and like. Kurt Hawkins is still putting his pads on or whatever. Like, wow, they literally told him to just go out there.
Hey, you guys, go out there, have a quick match, do your thing, and you don't even get to see the pinfall or anything. They kind of showed the match for a few minutes.
Yeah, they announced that Heath Slater won.
Yeah, they just announced it over the freaking mic, and no one cares, of course, watching, because who cares about that match? But the whole thing rounds out.
And then him on Twitter, he's like, I don't know what happened, but I just won at the Great Balls of Fire. Woohoo! I got it.
But basically, I'll round this out. You do have Braun Strowman getting out, scaring all the firefighters, and basically refusing to be checked out on the stretcher or anything like that. Basically, I mean, this is a lot of things taking up time, a lot of interest here. I mean, Paul, watching this live, I mean, what did you think about the match and everything that followed?
So the match itself was great, right? I mean, the live crowd's totally invested. They're all reacting to everything like you should. Like it's just extremely well done. It's just a really fun match too. Like both guys are throwing each other around, they're beating the crap out of each other. I think this is everything you could have wanted out of this. And you get some silliness in there, of course, with the ambulance being the stipulation, right? Like, I mean, Braun trying to throw Roman in there, and Roman just like holding on with all fours and shaking his head and all that. Like, I mean, it's just, silly stuff that you get in stip matches. But I thought the finish was nice, and then the second Braun won, and Roman Reigns opens those doors. Your voice popped in my head, Gary, because Roman, of course, has to stand tall. And he certainly does do that by committing manslaughter almost on Braun Strowman, who is all bloody and all this stuff and manages to stumble away. And not a strong move for a babyface, but then again, is he really a babyface anymore? And it should also be noted that 5 minutes before his music hit, he was already getting booed out of the building. So.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe WWE's smart and just said, you know what? Let's just turn these guys. I just don't see how you could expect people to cheer Roman after that. He almost killed somebody on purpose. This is not like some other car decided to run into the thing and it got hit and Roman all of a sudden has this concerned look on his face. He just walks out of the ambulance like, I don't give a shit, and then just walk by. You literally ran an ambulance into the back of a semi. Do you understand the gravity of what you have just done here? How can you cheer for this man? It's wow.
It's true, though, right? I mean, they're really kind of, I don't know what to say, they're scaring the kids, but all those little kids that love Roman Reigns and they cheer his name and they want to buy his merchandise and all that, now you're showing them, hey, this is the same guy you love, but he's about to murder someone, and he's completely cool with it. So, but on the other side, I mean, people like us, and of course all those other people in their 20s and 30s that are males are thrilled. They're like, thank God, he's doing something different. He's human, right? He's not a superhero. He's a human guy.
I don't know about that though. I think this, like you said, the first way, this was obviously there to scare the living daylights out of the kids. Oh my God, this guy that I love is literally crashing a car into another car to hurt him. But, like, I don't know if you're an adult that you think this is cool either. Like, that's also frightening if you're an adult. So, they might have won both ways. Like, I don't think this is a thing where you're going to get the adults cheering Roman all of a sudden. Like, you might actually get a heel out of this where just everybody hates him.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you could see it that way, too. I just think, you're happy it's not just that John Cena 2.0. I think that's what people want. They want to see him do something else. They don't want to see the cookie cutter. And if that's something else, then maybe that'll make people kind of lighten up on him. And I'm not saying that I'm lightened up completely on him. I'm not buying a Roman Empire shirt tomorrow. I'm just saying that at least this is something that gives me a little hope for the future, possibly with him. And if it's a full heel turn, it is what it is. If it's just a gray area thing, which I think that's probably the way they're going, it is what it is. But
he's already in the gray area. I mean, how much more gray area can you give one man?
Yeah, he's definitely more gray area than John Cena. I think that's what people see. They're just hating him, like with the same thing we always talk about, right? The whole, it's Vince's guy, so we're going to have to hate him. So,
I mean, it's Vince's guy who got shoved down everybody's throats, and I mean, you still, like, the audience they're trying to cater to right now is still cheering for the guy. Like, that didn't go away. Like, I mean, where we were sitting, there's kids, there's moms. I mean, there's a kid and a mom in front of me wearing a Roman Reigns shirt, and the kid has, like, the Roman Reigns gauntlet on and everything. Like, they love Roman, and so did a lot of other people in that building. And, I mean, if you're not at least second-guessing how you can cheer for a guy who's trying to murder somebody, then maybe you need to look at yourself. But, I mean, it's not like any of that. I don't know if they'll ever stop cheering him. The kids will, but, I mean, if it doesn't make you think about it, like Sean was saying, then maybe you need to sort of rethink how they're doing this. But, I mean, either way, I mean, Roman in that gray area.
Because you could totally see how people were cheering for Braun, right? Like, he goes in there, kicks ass. He's got, like, that awesome, like, deep, gravelly voice. I mean, it's like...
And he walks away from this, too. Like, yeah. I mean, he stumbles a lot, but he walks away. Like,
what a badass.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah,
you're right. So, if anything, you're just creating more. I mean, look, that's fine. The Attitude Era thrived on everybody just being a bunch of shades of gray, right? If that's what you're trying to do. If you just have 2 shades of gray characters, that's okay, too. You have another one in Brock, basically. But, I mean, I don't know. I think when you have a solid situation, sometimes it's more than having the I don't know what he is kind of.
It's tough, right? I mean, it's really tough to find that happy spot. You got, like you said, 2 guys that are kind of having some shades of gray. You could even have 3, 4. At least it's not 50 shades of gray, So that's the positive there.
I don't think we want that on TV.
So, but yeah, no, I think what we got here was good. I think at least the match was really good, and I think everything that followed, all the kind of thought process people can kind of come out with it, that's great. At least it's got people thinking. They can kind of take what they want out of Braun Strowman being kind of injured through the car accident, and of course now how we view Roman. So we'll see. I mean, I'm excited about seeing the fallout of a lot of this stuff, right? That's the good thing. You have some interest in watching Raw the next night.
Mm-hmm.
So but yeah, I mean, that pretty much rounds out your ambulance match. Let's go ahead and talk about a match I did skip over, and that, of course, is the Intercontinental title match, and that, of course, was between Dean Ambrose and your IC champion, The Miz. And, of course, the Miz has his guys out there ringside. You got Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, and, of course, Maurice. And Dean Ambrose has some ideas about how he's going to take this thing on, and the first thing he's going to do is run out there and attack Curtis Axel and use that to his advantage to kind of cause some chaos and then jump in the ring and do his thing and face off against The Miz. And we see that pretty much throughout the match because really, it's an uphill battle for Ambrose, right? He's doing a pretty decent job throughout the match, kind of being that underdog because he's got not just one guy to worry about, but 2 guys to worry about. Plus, the valet who's making sure that, her man is not going to lose this match, even putting his foot on the rope to make sure that he doesn't get counted out. So there's a lot that Dean Ambrose had to overcome. He looked pretty good doing it, I think, at times. He was able to take both guys out at times on the outside, work on the Miz, but it was just too much. There was too much going on, and the Miz does win this match in the end. I think this is decent. I didn't have any problems with it. I think they did what they could, and I think I was more interested in Dean Ambrose in this match than I thought I would be. I really kind of was curious if I would even care about it, but I think it was pretty good. I don't know. I mean, what did you think, Sean?
I'll agree. I mean, look, I think obviously Miz and Dean Ambrose has far past the expiration date, right? I mean, let's be honest. These guys have been feuding for seems like forever, since the other brand. I think they've tried their best with what they've been given. I think actually, we didn't like it at first, but the Miz Taraj actually gives Miz a little bit of a different feel to him, because not only does he have Maurice now, which Maurice got heavily involved in this match, he's also got, Bodellis and Axel, which, like, whoever gets the Intercontinental title off this guy, he really earned it just from having to beat 3 people and Miz. So, I think they did a good job of making you feel at times like Ambrose might get to overcome the odds, but he doesn't. Bodellis gets in there and costs it for him. But I thought overall the match was fine. It wasn't anything special, but I really just hope that we're done here and Miz moves on.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest takeaway from this. Look, this match it's not good, it's not great, it's not bad or awful either. It's just sort of there because we've seen it so many times, and the interference thing, you knew all that was going to happen. I think this just really goes to show you that these two really need to move on. They need a fresh feud here, and hopefully they don't have to address this anymore. Let's just call it a day, move Dean on, move Miz on, and see what else you can make here.
Yeah, you're right. And, as much as we've seen this match, I think the reason I kind of got more out of it was because the Mizraj, you said, Sean. And I kind of looked at Dean Ambrose in a different way. And it's kind of funny to say this, but I kind of looked at him through those eyes of maybe an 80s action star. We used to see Kurt Russell play those parts where he would do some crazy things and, just an average Joe, but he'd go out there and beat the crap out of 2 or 3 guys at the same time, and you're just like, wow, how could a trucker do that? And then you'd have you'd have certain guys like that kind of come out and play those roles. And I kind of thought of Dean Ambrose in a situation like that and playing that part, and he kind of looks the part. I could totally see him in those kind of movie roles, and so it's just kind of funny to kind of mirror him to that kind of stuff, but that's what makes him kind of cool in a way. But in a way, at times, I think we kind of see him as boring because there's just not much more than silly old Dean Ambrose, right? Mm-hmm. So, but at least I kind of thought of him in a good way tonight, because trust me, I love those old action 80 movies, so... maybe he needs to be more on the harsher side, though. Maybe he can't be completely crazy because of the PG era, but I still say that Dean Ambrose needs to find something that's a little bit more vicious. I can't think of his name right now, but there was an awesome guy in the Death Wish movies, and Charles Bronson, right? He needs to be like Charles Bronson. Then I think Dean Ambrose gets over even more. Just my point of view. So, could you imagine that?
Would they let him do that, though?
I don't know. That's the thing. That's the question. I mean, I think he could be a little bit more aggressive and angry instead of cutting jokes. The joke stuff is still getting to me, guys. I just don't know. But anyway. That pretty much wraps up that. I think that we only have one last thing to talk about, and that, of course, is the big match of the night. The ninth, that really, honestly, the one thing that everybody was kind of getting really super excited about, and that's, of course, this championship match between Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe. I mean, come on, this is for the Universal title, but really, the match itself was more about pride, was more about who's the bigger, toughest guy in the room. And really, I mean, wow. I mean, I think that the crowd was super hot for both these guys. That I could kind of, at least over the TV, you could hear them really getting excited to Joe. I mean, the Joe chants were pretty awesome, I have to admit. I really appreciated the crowd's response to Joe. And, of course, Brock Lesnar always gets that big pop. And I think, they did this thing in the right manner from my point of view as well, because, I mean, Samoa Joe just jumps right on Brock Lesnar. Doesn't even give him time to think or anything. Gets him out of the ring, goes to the table, and of course gets this thing started hot, where that way Samoa Joe gets to control the beginning of this match. And, at first, Brock's kind of struggling through this, and you kind of start thinking about things as you're watching this take place. But you do have Brock Lesnar come back. He's able to get some suplexes in. You do see the Kimura clutch on a few times, and towards the end, you actually get a chance to see Brock Lesnar look like he could possibly tap out, but he's able to break out of that. He gets the F5 on Samoa Joe and the 1, 2, 3, and you still have Brock Lesnar as your Universal Champion. Wow. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed it. I was really happy with the way it worked out, because I honestly wasn't sure. I think a lot of us thought this could be so short that if you blink, you would not get a chance to see it. I think they did a good job still with Samoa Joe involved in this match and get Brock Lesnar to win. Paul, what was your overall thoughts?
I'm really glad the Joe stuff came through. The entire arena was super hot for him, which I was super appreciative of. We got some Joe's gonna kill you chants going on, which I also loved to pieces. And there's just so much good stuff in this. And for as short as it was, the match at least was only 6.5 minutes. But I think if you take in the pre-match stuff before the bell actually rings, you're somewhere in that sweet spot of 8 to 10 minutes. And this really worked out great, I think. Joe looks absolutely monstrous. One of the few who I think's really taken Brock to the level, and I think they both sort of show it as they stare at each other like they knew they just went through something. And, I mean, these are never going to be 5-star specials or anything, but they work really well. And I can see why the WWE keeps wanting to do them, but I just don't know how much longer I'm really okay with Brock holding the championship, because Samoa Joe, I think, would have been perfect to dethrone him. Like, there's not a lot of other guys who you could, I think, have him do it and feel credible. And the way they built up this match and this feud, Joe winning, I think, would have made sense. And I don't know if they're going to be able to recapture that feeling for somebody else down the road, i.e. Roman Reigns or anybody else who they might put the question mark over a possible Universal Champion,
Well, Braun would be the other one, and I think they set that up really well for Braun to be that guy at SummerSlam. If they want to do it, if they finally come to their senses and understand, like, just Braun is starting to become a big deal, and what a way to crown him over Brock Lesnar, have somebody finally that the crowd actually really, really likes, win this title off him, and then you can have Roman take it away later because they have such a big feud. Like, they can have one more for the championship, and they could. I could see Kurt Angle saying, "Well, Roman Reigns, you're not getting that title shot anymore after what you did to Braun," and Braun gets the title shot against Brock instead, because technically he won that match anyway. So, I mean, they could also do a triple threat or whatever, or even a fatal four where they want to put Joe back in there, but I just hate to see. I hope that Joe gets another opportunity and does get an opportunity before he, eventually calls it a day to hold one of those major championships in WWE, because I think he definitely, if you didn't know who he was, or you kind of only watched him in WWE or whatever, and you're not understanding the hype, I think you understand the hype now. You understand why Joe is cool and why people were cheering for him in the arena and everything, because he looked like a star against Brock. It took bunch of suplexes and an F5 out of nowhere to get him down, but Joe took him to the limit. Not a lot of guys get to do that, and I think that's we should give WWE credit for that, for recognizing what the effort that Joe has put in this short time of feud with Brock. And I think for me, I don't mind Brock having the title. I think it makes the Universal title matches special. The only thing that bothers me is, like, I don't want it to find out that we're building to another Roman and Brock match. That's my only issue, is that the guy that winds up taking it off him is Roman. Like, if it's somebody else, whether it's Joe or Braun, or if they happen to find somebody else that meets that, maybe Finn or something, but the way they've had him just wrestling, Elias Sampson, I don't know if they're kind of trying to just cool him off or what they're doing here, but there's only a handful, 3 or 4 guys right now that could legitimately take it off Brock, and you might believe it. But for me, like, if you're not doing Joe, I feel like Braun's that second guy, and if you don't do Braun, then I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying here, and I think that we all have those thought processes. Oh man, it's going to be Roman. Roman's going to be the guy that beats Brock, and that way he can shine throughout this entire process. He can mark on his calendar when he's going to do something else that's humongous. And I think Braun Strowman would get so much out of that. I think it would do him wonders. I think, hey, if you had Finn Balor beat Brock Lesnar, oh my God. I mean, that would put him in another level immediately. And that's what he really needs at this point. But, I mean, it's not like he's suffering. It's just that he would immediately jump up to a whole nother echelon. So, I mean, I think that's what's great about Brock Lesnar. I mean, beating him just gets you to a bigger plateau just immediately. And that's what's awesome about him. So, but Samoa Joe didn't have to win to at least get close and to look as strong as he wanted to, look as strong as he needed to, if you ask me. So I think overall, good stuff out of both those guys on this. And it is a small, short match, right? It's nothing just so grand, but it's something important. And I think it had a lot of value in it. So. But yeah, there you go. So Brock Lesnar is still your Universal Champion. And that leads us to one last thing that we're going to do, and we are going to give this show a rating and kind of talk about the highlights.
This keeps being a heel show.
Yeah. That's where all the bad guys go to hang out, right?
Like, I wonder if there's been a history of this in WWE, like, ever, where they've had so many heel champions at once, and they just keep winning at pay-per-views. It's amazing how long they've gone on this streak. Like, are they just going to do a title change at SummerSlam, or this has been a while now?
I mean, they went so far as to do a title change at a house show the other night and give the U.S. title to AJ. So, I mean, maybe it's evening out on one side and not the other. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, and it's going to be interesting. That's why I can't wait till we get to Monday Night Raw to kind of figure out some of these other answers that we're, seeing if we'll get answered in the near future or if we're still going to have those questions leading up months. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and get this show a rating and kind of talk about what we liked and disliked overall about this show at Great Balls of Fire. Sean, what was your thoughts on this one?
I think I'm going like a 7.5. I think there was more good on this show. There wasn't anything bad. It went from, Enzo and Cass was necessary to fine to really good to, great. To great moments, I think. I don't think you don't have a standout, oh my God, you just drop everything you're doing and watch this match. I think some of the other Braun and Roman matches are probably wind up being better. But I think that moment that you get afterwards makes that match stand out now because, oh my God, you just have watched somebody try to kill someone. I don't know if you want to watch that whole 10, 15 minute aftermath because that felt like it took forever. And I don't know if they needed to show that entire thing either, but that's WWE sometimes. Sometimes they are not subtle about wanting to waste your time. But I think overall, though, this was a really enjoyable show. I can get the people that just... Because sometimes we talk about finishes, right, ruining matches, and I can get the whole people being upset about, some of these finishes ruining the show for them and all that stuff. People are giving it 5s and all that lower, but I don't know. This is one of the better WWE shows of the year, and for a pay-per-view with a dumb name, at least they delivered.
I really enjoyed myself throughout the show, honestly. I think the 3 hours fly by, which you can't always say for WWE, like we say so many times whenever they do actually produce good 3-hour shows. I'm with you. I mean, some of the finishes here do suck. It takes away from some of the enjoyment, but, I mean, up until that point, you still have a lot of good stuff here. The tag team title match delivers. I think the 2 matches they built up to be the big stuff on this show absolutely delivered. And then you have some okay stuff in between and some necessary stuff, and I think you nailed it right on the head, Sean. 7.5, I think, about covers this. It's a really fun show. It's not the best, but it gets the job done, Yeah,
I think you're right on that. I maybe just a tad lower. I was going to go a 7, and I think overall you get some of those things that you need to kind of get maybe done when it comes to maybe hopefully finishing off some of these feuds. The ones that are going to progress, it seems like they make sense to progress, and that's okay with me. And I think just when it comes to the violence and things like that you were kind of hoping that would come out of that ambulance match, even the main event match, you kind of got it. You really didn't, lose out on anything that you were kind of wishing for. I think they pretty much gave you those things. And I even think that the tag title match, sure, there were little mishaps here and there. I still think that was exciting to watch, too. So, overall, it's great stuff. I think, for a show I didn't have just a ton of expectations for, they did a good job. And I was okay with it. So, yeah, but that pretty much is your Great Balls of Fire discussion for the night and your review. Before we get out of here, I do want to say, Paul, I mean, you had a young man that was with you, and it was his first show, and, for kids, that's something special. Mm-hmm. I just got to know, just kind of while you're watching the show, did you see anything that this kid really enjoyed? I'm just kind of curious because we always hear about the kids' reactions. Was there any certain point of the show that he was super excited for or anything like that?
I mean, like he's a big Roman Reigns fan. That's the T-shirt I got him for his birthday, and he really liked Brock Lesnar. But I think he popped the loudest for Neville. And that's just somebody who, a lot of us, like, he hangs out with us mostly, and we're all obviously in our 30s. But he really enjoys, Neville a lot since he was a face because of all the flying around he does, and he still loves him. So I think he probably popped the loudest for Neville, but I don't want to say this is the usual, sort of kid that watches, but in a way he is, right? I mean, he loves Roman. He likes Sheamus and Cesaro a lot. He mostly also likes just being the opposite of what we're doing, too. So
that's awesome. Who do you guys like? Okay, I'm not choosing that one.
It's because we all love the Hardy Boys. It's like, oh, no, I love Sheamus and Cesaro more.
That's awesome. That's great. Yes, I love that. I love the experience, especially for someone's first show. Heck, it doesn't have to be a kid. I've been with people that are grown adults. It was their first show to go to, and it's just fun to watch their reaction and just to see how they kind of go from the way they think about it to wow, it's in your face, and they just thoroughly enjoy it most of the time. I've never been with anybody who didn't enjoy themselves at a wrestling show like this, so that's really, really cool. I'm happy that you got a chance to do that tonight. But yeah, that's our show, guys. We hope you all enjoyed it. We, of course, had a lot of fun. And, if you want to come check out our Raw review, that'll be talking about all the fallout from Great Balls of Fire. Make sure you come check us out right after Raw. Of course, that'll be also on demand. So if you want to listen to it, of course, Tuesday morning on your drive to work or maybe your lunch break, you can, of course, listen to that. And, if you want to find it and you don't know how to find it on the Norm, make sure you go subscribe at Wrestling to the Max or the W2M Network, wherever you find podcasts. Maybe it's Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict, wherever you find them. Just go ahead and go subscribe on either stream or both, whatever you want to do. Also, don't forget to go check out W2Mnet.com and 411mania.com. Both sites are great, and you're not going to want to miss a minute of the action on all the content that they have to offer, as well as we have a YouTube channel. If you don't know about that YouTube channel, go check it out. Go subscribe, because, of course, if you have your YouTube channel, maybe you set up to do emails and let you know when content comes out, you're going to want that, because you'll get a quick email saying, hey, those guys did that review show that I've been really waiting for, and you'll know right when to go click on it and listen to it. It's just so easy, and it's just so convenient for your listening pleasure. Besides that, I just want to let you guys know I'm Gary Vaughan. It's Sean Garmer and Mr. Paul Leazar. And until next time, if you're not living life to the max,
not living life at all,
you know it.
Peace.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.